So this is our third session of Knowledge Bites. As you guys know, this is sort of off the normal schedule. It's usually the second and fourth Tuesdays of every month, but we've decided to use the first and the third Tuesdays for any sort of additional Knowledge Bite sessions that might need to be presented in a timely fashion. Hence, having R.T. Brown with us, BDCC. He also runs the Windham County Economic Development Program, which he is here, obviously, to talk about today. So if I can get my screen, there we go. So the goal of these sessions are to provide high-level introductions to programs, resources, and tools that focus on economic and workforce development. So during the session, the information will be provided, and then at the end of each session, RT or whoever will be presenting at the time provide their contact information where you can get more in-depth assistance utilizing this resource. So the structure of the webinar is a 20-minute presentation, and then there will be 10 minutes of question and answer. As you think of questions, put them into the chat function, and at the end, RT will go through and address the questions. And again, this is being recorded. You can locate that recording at the website on this screen. All right, and I'm going to switch it over now to RT. He's going to have the floor, and he'll start telling us about the WCEDP program.
Okay, folks, can you hear me? Sarah, can you hear me?
Yes, you are good to go.
Awesome. I'm actually going to try something new. I'm going to turn on the camera. We'll see if that works. And just so folks have a face with a name, so I'm saying hello, and then now I'm going to turn the camera off. So if you see me on the street, you can flag me down and we can chat about the Windham County Economic Development Program. Okay, so as Sarah said, the purpose of this is to provide folks with an overview of the 2017 Windham County Economic Development Program's Request for Proposal, or RFP. And I am just going to make a slight adjustment here, and I'm just going to go ahead and jump into this. So the first bullet you'll see here, I'm not going to read it verbatim, but it really talks about the purpose or the program overview for the Windham County Economic Development Program in general. As most folks probably know, the program represents two forms of funding for the most part. One is in the form of a revolving loan, which is not what we're talking about today, and that's goes to eligible projects in the region. And it's a rolling program, and folks can come into that at any time. And then there's this piece. There's the annual RFP, and that is geared toward typically nonprofits to help develop the economic development infrastructure in the region. And that's an annual RFP we have this year, and I believe the 2018 RFP will be the last year for the competitive grants. I do want to highlight a couple things on this page, and that is the text that's in red. The primary focus of the program is to provide private sector job creation and the retention and direct support of entrepreneurial activities and so on. And then that second bullet, adding jobs and contributing to the GDP or GRP, so gross domestic product or gross regional product to the region, does not necessarily mean a project is aligned with the focus of the program. So I encourage folks to spend some time, and I'm going to show you where to go. There's a URL in the third bullet, and just review what the focus of the program is. And take that to heart before submitting a proposal, because again, just because an organization may be adding jobs or may be increasing their capacity to increase the GDP, that doesn't mean necessarily that it fits the focus of the program, which is the economic development infrastructure for the region. I know that can be confusing to people. I'm more than happy to chat with folks, offline, one-on-one, or meet with folks to dive into that those concepts a little bit deeper. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I will be giving you my contact information at the end of this webinar. Okay, I'm going to move on. So technical assistance resources. If you live in the world of grants, you probably understand what that means. Apologies myself. My office line is ringing. I think I turned it off. Oh, no. There. Sorry about that, folks. So if you live in the world of grants, you probably understand what this means. Technical assistance resources are the folks that can help you either while you're within a grant or while you're trying to apply for a particular funding opportunity. I want to highlight the first two. Of course, there's myself. I'd probably be the first person you'd reach out to. In fact, you're encouraged to reach out to me for the RFP package so that you can complete that for submission. But also the Vermont Small Business Development Center. They have been intimately involved with the program. They understand both the loan side as well as the competitive grant side. They understand how the packages on both sides need to come together so that they are strong applications. And they're just a great resource. So reach out to me. I'm happy to make a connection, and we can review those resources. This is the timeline for this year's RFP. It was released originally on July 1st. The deadline for the pre-applications is September 1. Those will be reviewed by the local council, and then it'll move forward as you can see here. If you have any questions about the timeline, it's pretty straightforward. Just let me know. So what's in the pre-application? Some folks who've been around a while might notice that we started to refer to this process as a pre-application rather than a letter of intent. We thought at the local council level that a pre-application is probably a better way to describe what it is that folks are doing. Letter of intents are usually just a 1 or 2 page letter that's a narrative, but we're actually looking for a little more information so that people can give the local council a better feel for the project. So the high-level sections within the pre-application are the bullets you see there: applicant information, project information, sources and uses, project timeline, description of any collaborations, job creation and retention worksheet, and then the scoring criteria. And I'm actually going to jump out of my presentation and go to the application. Oh, of course it now looks funny. Bear with me. I'm going to refresh my screen. Okay, that should be better. So as you can see here, it's about 9 pages. It's a fillable PDF. This is the applicant information. I just want to highlight a few things. There's this question about a NAICS number. That's a North American Industry Classification System. So that's a code. I can help you find that if you need it, but if you Google that, you'll be able to find how to determine what your NAICS code is, and it's a classification code to help us understand what industry an organization might be operating under. The project information, it starts with just the physical location of the project. A project has to be located in Windham County, and I need to make the distinction between Windham Region and Windham County. A lot of times, the folks here at the BDCC, as well as the Windham Regional Commission, will reference the Windham Region. The Windham Region actually includes 2 towns, I believe it is, outside of Windham County. This program, the project has to happen within Windham County. The project information is just a narrative. It's pretty straightforward. The sources and uses page, we need to understand what are the total project costs and what are you requesting? What's the actual grant for? And then what are the other funding sources associated with the project? And then here at the bottom, what are they going to be used for? And you'll see here at the bottom that there's areas for you to, add in some other uses. Let's say I'm just pulling something out of the air here. Let's say it's curriculum. That might be an appropriate section to add that particular use. The project timeline, again, it's pretty straightforward. We're just asking to understand the major milestones associated with the project. We don't need to know the minutia. We just want to understand, is this a one-year project? Is this beyond a one-year project? When's it going to kick off? Is it ready to start? Or is it going to be 6 months before it can start? And then what are the, somewhere in your narrative you would address, why it's, why is there a 6-month delay before it starts and so forth. That's not a bad thing. That's not a good thing. I'm just trying to explain what that section is for. Description of collaboration. So any partners that you might have or collaborators that you might have associated with your project need to be documented here. I would also say that if you have more than one collaborator, we can get you additional pages for this section. Oftentimes projects do have more than one collaborator, so that might be needed. Please reach out to me and I'll provide that to you. This is the section that you might need some help with while you're working through this. But we need to understand how this RFP relates to our CEDS objectives. So CEDS, if you don't know, is our Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy for the region. I'm going to go into a little more detail back in the presentation, but the point I want to make here is that language isn't necessarily the language that folks use on an everyday basis, but fortunately or unfortunately, for folks here at the SBDC as well as at the BDCC, as well as folks who are involved with SEDEDS, the Southeastern Vermont Economic Development Strategies, it's what we talk about on a daily basis. So, as a technical assistance resource, I can help you contextualize your project within the framework of our SEDEDS. Job retention and creation, we need to understand how this project is going to add jobs or retain them. So at first glance this might seem confusing, but it's really not. You just plug in a job category, an average annual wage for that category, whether that position is going to be retained or whether you're creating a new position through the program that you're proposing. And here, the last 2 pages are how your project is going to be scored at the local council level. So we're asking you to just provide a brief narrative explaining how your project addresses each one of these, I think it's 12 criteria. It's a way for us to ensure that you've thought about each one. Perhaps your project does not address every single one. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but we want to understand that you recognize that this project does not meet or does not address each one of the 12 criteria or a specific criteria. And I truly mean that it's not an assumption that every project is going to be able to address each one of these 100%, but we want to know that you've thought about it within the context of this RFP. Okay, I am going to jump back to the presentation. Actually, I'm going to show you where to go to get more information about the program and other things. So I've got Google open here. I'm just going to type ACCD. I want to go to the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. Within the last, I don't know, 6 months or so, they've redone their site. So yeah, if you haven't been there, it confuse you a little bit. I personally think it's clearer. But under funding and incentives, the Windham County Economic Development Program is the last menu item. And here you can get some history, the program objectives, the structure of the program. We've already talked about that, competitive grants, non-competitive grants, incentives, and so forth. And just, all the information you really ever need about the program is listed here, as well as the RFP, the timeline, and so forth. Also on this page, you'll see this document, which is the technical resource assistance providers. I've already talked about them, but if you need the contact information for any of these, it's provided here as well. Okay, back to the presentation. Talked about the pre-application. So what makes a good proposal? I encourage you to review the scoring criteria. I'm going to touch on that in a minute. Make sure that your project is in line with the scoring criteria as best as it can be, and that you review the objectives that we're trying to address as referenced in the RFP. And this year, it's objective 3, 4, and 5. There's a URL provided at the bottom of this presentation that has our complete SEDS, so if you're interested in reading up a little bit more, on page 28 and 29, you can learn a little more about the objectives that are referenced here. But at the highest level, this year's RFP, as with last year's, is focused on workforce-related issues within our region. Continuing, what makes a good proposal and this year's focus, as I said, workforce-related considerations. So in section 2.2.1 of the RFP, you'll see this language. So it's very important that the projects meet this. There's a couple of other criteria or other, there's a 2.2.2 and 2.2.3, but I would say the key focus is on workforce recruitment, retainment solutions, for the region. So what makes a weak proposal? A proposal that doesn't meet the requirements of the RFP. So something that's just totally outside the scope of the RFP. So that's pretty straightforward. So the word of advice here is to read the RFP and make sure that your project is aligned with the RFP. Also, projects that are not aligned with the purpose of the Windham County Economic Development Program. So again, I encourage you to read the top of that page on that website to really understand what the purpose is. Most folks understand that the program was put into place after the closure of Vermont Yankee was announced. So, and that's where the funds are coming from. They're provided to the state and therefore the county by Entergy for the purpose of economic development in the region. So that is the purpose of the program. Applications that are not complete, that's kind of an obvious one. Goes back to maybe second grade. you gotta make sure you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's when submitting an application. The last two bullets are really important. I would say that these are the areas of weakness that in the 2 years that I've been here, I've seen really hurt potential applications. So lack of other funding sources and lack of partners and different collaborators. If you are submitting an application and the only funding source is this program, your project will not fare as well as a project that has multiple funding sources. And the same with partners and collaborators. It's important to have partners and leverage other resources within our region that can uplift and validate and contribute to your project. Let's see. This is my contact information, rbrown@brownworlddevelopment.com, and my phone number. Please feel free to reach out to me. I will get back to you typically within 24 hours. I think that's the end of my presentation. I don't know that I took up 20 minutes, Sarah, but I'm going to jump out of my presentation and get to the chat area to see if there's any questions.
I think you filled up about 20 minutes, if I'm
okay.
correctly.
All right, I'm going to type in the chat area my email address. The first step for folks, if they are interested, is to reach out to me to request a sorry, I'm running out of words. the application package. I'd like to know who it's gone to so that I can just follow up if needed. So please reach out.
So if you guys have any questions for RT, now would be the time to go ahead and type those into the chat function, and RT will gladly answer to the best of his knowledge. Yeah, and that's what the rest of the session is reserved for. RT, could you potentially talk about projects that have been funded in the past as examples?
Yeah, I think probably the most well-known, sort of highly recognized project is the Windham Grows food hatchery that's operated out of Sterling of the Heifers. They completed their first cohort not too long ago and had a nice event where Bernie Sanders came down and congratulated the graduates of that hatchery. A hatchery is essentially an accelerator, but it's in line with the mission of Sterling of the Heifers, so it's food and ag-based businesses. It's a cohort model, and they, for several years, as defined in their application, will try to take emerging, well, a little more than emerging, so existing businesses, and get them from point A to point B from a scaling perspective. So they do a great job of aligning them with appropriate resources, whether they be funders or entrepreneur. There's an entrepreneur in training, Jim Brazino, and I believe Current Cross of Fresh Trucks Capital is also one of the entrepreneurs in residence for that program. So that's very much fit the program objectives and the requirements for the RFP. When they applied, it's a sustained effort to help existing businesses in the region grow, and in the end, will add jobs and overall vitality, if you will, to the region.
And so, can anyone apply to this? Municipalities, chambers, or is it strictly private?
Private nonprofits?
Yeah.
No, there are. At least I'll provide conditional language here. I've not seen language that is restrictive beyond that. It's typically meant for nonprofits, but I believe a municipality can apply. I can make sure of that, but I have not seen language otherwise.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the participants online with us? I'm gonna go ahead and take over control.
Okay, great, thanks.
I just want to, if you guys are typing questions, keep typing. I just wanted to highlight our next Knowledge Bite, which will actually be a week from today. We're going to have Kristen Mihalik of BDCC as well as Michelle Morocco of Bennington County Regional Commission talk about the internship programs and internship resources within Windham and Bennington counties. So they're looking, their target audience will be, you know, any business or organization that is looking to have an intern, you know, in Windham and Bennington counties, and as well as college students that are interested in becoming an intern in Windham and Bennington counties. So if this is of interest to you, please tune in next week at this time, or please pass along the information to those who you think would be interested. We're also always open to suggestions. If there's a program or resource tool that you are interested in learning more about, please shoot me an email, give me a phone call, and I can work on getting, you know, whether it's the executive director or the program manager to do a webinar so that we can learn more information and spread the knowledge. So if there are no more questions, I think we can go ahead and finish up the session. So thank you everyone for coming and attending. RT, thank you very much. Please do not hesitate to reach out to either one of us if you have any questions later on that you didn't think of now. Please email RT, who will gladly answer that.
Yeah, so, thanks for listening, folks. Appreciate it very much.
Yep. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of your day.